onto this now. If only we could have flown over the traffic on that Saturday to get there just a few minutes earlier to save you and tell you again how much we love you. No one prepares you for that phone call. Please rush. Your child has made an attempt on his life and we don't know if the paramedics can save him. It really is any parent's worst nightmare. When Teresa Mordoh received it, she and her husband sped across town, but for them it was too late. Their son, Julio, could not be saved, and it was just 2 months before his 21st birthday. 6 psychiatrists, 8 psychologists, over 12 months in treatment as an inpatient, following 12 times in hospital for mental health-related conditions, including complex post-traumatic stress disorder. None of it helped in the end. Teresa Mordoh, who is the brave mother of Julio, has agreed to speak to us to share her pain and her family's quest for justice, and she joins us now in the studio. Teresa, firstly, I must thank you for your bravery to come forward to tell your story. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Thank you, Bongani.
Describe Julio to me. What kind of child was he?
A bright, intelligent, enthusiastic, curious, young child with a thirst for knowledge. He thrived learning.
He wasn't just bright, he was also athletic. He was quite the skilled rock climber.
Very skilled rock climber, but I think that comes from his gymnastics background. He was training gymnastics and competing locally and internationally by the age of 12.
Was he a shy or confident child?
He was not shy, but he didn't want to be center stage. He was happy to be listening and commenting when appropriate.
What's your favorite memory of him?
My favorite memory, there are many favorites, but I really loved being in Euro Disney, riding the Rush roller coasters with him. He just loved the rush of the roller coasters.
I mentioned in my introduction that he obviously had difficulties. When did you first notice he was struggling?
So he was thriving in the pre-prep, funny, I just spoke to his headmistress in the pre-prep, and she sent me a photo of him, of how she remembers him in the pre-prep. The struggle started when he went into the prep, which is around the junior school, which is grade 3 to 7. And he was small in stature, as we are as a family. And as a result, he became an easy target for bullying. And by the time we got towards the end of his first year, he had a specific incidence of bullying, which we went to the headmaster with. And the recommendation or suggestion was that he'd have the head of pastoral care check in on Julio weekly, and that the head of pastoral care was also the rock climbing coach, and that he would allow Julio to start rock climbing at 10 when the normal age was 12. And sadly, the rock climbing coach was the person who we have allegations against.
So you were seeking help, and inadvertently he was sent directly into the clutches of the alleged abuser.
Yes. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it certainly gave him means and opportunity.
So after this, you moved overseas for some time. Did things seem a little better when you were away?
Absolutely. The psychologist that Julia had started seeing in his grade 7 year, towards the end of grade 6 and grade 7, had told us that he was so unhappy at school that no matter what, I had a career opportunity to go to Paris, and she said, take it, because no matter what, you've got to take him out of the school. He is desperately unhappy.
Tell me about the incident with the Leatherman.
So he had, the accused had been asking him the whole year to go camping. He used to run outdoor camping weekends that small groups of boys would attend. And I always didn't feel quite comfortable having my child sleep out on a non-kind of school event. And he had quite a heavy training schedule with gymnastics. So that was really an easy excuse to say that he had homework and gymnastics. And he continued to pursue and ask until the November of of 2014 that year, and said he was going out just for a day trip, and they'd leave at about 8 on Sunday and be back before dark. When he came back that evening, it was way past dark. They said they got caught in traffic. And as they came in, Julio went to shower, and when he got out the shower, he presented him with his Leatherman with his name engraved on it, and offered it to Julio. And I at first said, well, it has your name engraved on it, so it must be a gift. So I'm not sure that you should, giving away such an expensive gift, it's inappropriate. And he insisted by opening the blade and said, look, the blade is broken and I have another one. So I really want Julio to have this to remind him of the special day.
So you moved away from the country for a while and you lived overseas until you came back some years later. When did you connect the dots that what you seemed to be observing as difficulties with Julio was linked to this individual?
We didn't, because Julio was silenced in shame. He didn't. It's either that he had unconsciously buried these very traumatic memories and thought of them just as nightmares, and he just could not uncover that difficult part of himself. We only actually started to find those triggers when we came back to South Africa for his last 2 years of school in A-levels. When we had moved abroad, he had done the International Baccalaureate and then the Cambridge program. So we returned to St. John's to finish his A-levels, and he was quite happy actually socially in his A-levels, but he was physiologically triggered. He would come home covered in goosebumps and visibly agitated and on high alert, and he himself didn't know. So the only time at which all the pieces of the puzzle fell together were in November 21, when the St. John's School released a statement confirming that other boys had come forward regarding allegations of sexual abuse against the accused.
And that's when the penny dropped.
That's when the explosion happened.
That he hadn't been the only one.
Yep.
Tell me about that explosion as you've described it.
It's like the burst of a very painful, an eruption of a volcano. All of this hurt and pain that was inside and sort of managed exploded into a very volatile and traumatic experience. A little, sometimes cathartic, sometimes deeply troubling, and during that year, from November 21 to November 22, Julio was really not managing at all.
He wrote these words. I'm going to read them to you. There are 1 or 2 things that I haven't shared with anyone yet, as I'm too afraid to say it out loud. I know that I'm in a safe space, to share currently, but I'm still scared. I've pushed this to the deepest, darkest corner of my mind and have tried to delete it from my memory entirely. Saying it out loud makes it real, validates that it actually happened, and that's why I'm scared. Ultimately, Julio just couldn't come forward and say.
It's not uncommon, from what I understand, that the shame and the betrayal is so deep that it's insurmountable, that there's self-shame, there's self-blame. Julio thought he was the only one, and as a result, he thought that he was somehow to blame. And therefore, he couldn't chat to us. I mean, we'd even had specific discussions about, good touch, bad touch.
Yeah.
We were a very open family, and I think that in a very odd way, that actually had the reverse reaction, because he knew that it wasn't right, and therefore somehow he had violated not only himself, but what he was doing he knew was wrong.
Yeah. Teresa, tell me about that fateful day when you received that call to rush through. Who called you and what did they say?
So Julio attempted to hung himself at a Kiso Crescent in Randburg. And the psychiatrist gave me a call. We were actually almost about to leave to go and visit Julio, because it had been his dad's birthday the day before, and we wanted to go and have chocolate cake with him and his sister. And they were a little delayed getting the chocolate cake. And we got this call saying, I'm sorry to inform you that Julio's tried to hang himself. And we're calling the paramedics. And at that point, I just was really trying to hold on to the hope that we would get there and that things would all be okay. I mean, after all, he was in the facility as a high-risk patient. It was a hospital that should have been keeping him safe and observing him. So we thought even if he had tried and attempted, they would have found him and they would have saved him.
But it was too late.
Yeah. It brings up a lot of questions about how was he observed? How did he get away? Why was he in a restricted area for staff area? Why wasn't it locked?
Teresa, what would justice for Julio look like to you?
Justice is more about accountability than anything else. And I don't want any parents to feel and to experience what we've gone through. And that is a very broad definition, but unpacking it step by step, it means encouraging parents to stand up and speak up for their children. Children don't have a voice, and if we don't speak for them, who will?
Who will?
That's the first thing. So it's about speaking up and being an activist and sharing these deeply painful stories so that people realize that this is not just that difficult conversation that you shove aside. It is something that we need to talk about and find solutions. And you can't think that you're just putting your child into the best school and everything will be okay.
Teresa, thank you for your bravery, for sharing your story, and hopefully, if anything, from this conversation, other parents will be more alert. Certainly schools and other institutions can ask themselves tougher questions. And for clarity, we did invite the school in question, St. John's College, and they've said thank you for the invitation to participate, but they felt it was inappropriate for them to comment on the matter at this time.
Thank you.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.